Welcome to TT-Buddhism, a channel devoted to exploring the timeless wisdom of the Buddha and uncovering its practical meaning in our modern lives. I wasn't raised in a Buddhist family. In fact, I used to be, just like many others, constantly searching for success, fulfillment, and happiness in the outside world. I looked for meaning through work, relationships, achievements, and even in chasing after spiritual experiences. But no matter how much I achieved, something always felt incomplete. That restlessness pushed me to explore deeper truths. I began reading, studying, and learning about different religions and philosophies: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and more. Each offered beautiful insights. But it wasn't until I encountered Buddhist teachings that something inside me shifted. I came across the story of Siddhartha Gautama, a man who gave up everything in search of truth. His discovery under the Bodhi Tree didn't offer magical powers or eternal bliss. Instead, it revealed a simple yet profound truth. Suffering exists, it has a cause, and it can end. That moment of understanding lit a fire in my heart. I began to see things more clearly, to feel more deeply, and for the first time I experienced a peace that wasn't dependent on anything external. This video is born from that journey, and today I want to share it with you. We'll explore the true meaning of enlightenment, what really happened under the Bodhi tree, and why the Buddha's awakening is not about escaping life, but fully embracing it. Whether you're a curious seeker or a lifelong practitioner, this message is for you. Let's begin. So, what exactly is enlightenment? When most people hear the word, they imagine something mystical, a glowing guru sitting on a mountaintop, free from all emotions. Someone who never gets angry, never suffers, never struggles. Maybe even someone with supernatural powers. But the truth is far more surprising and far more human. In Buddhism, enlightenment isn't about becoming superhuman. It's not about gaining magical abilities or escaping everyday problems. It's not something reserved for monks in distant monasteries or saints from ancient times. In fact, real enlightenment is often the opposite of what we imagine. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about realizing who you've always been, beneath the layers of illusion. The Buddha himself didn't describe his awakening as some mystical transformation. He said simply, "I am awake, not special, not divine, just awake." And what was he awake to? The nature of suffering, its root causes, and the way to end it. Think about that. He didn't promise paradise. He didn't claim to be a god. He offered a path, a practical way to live with clarity, compassion, and freedom, no matter your circumstances. Many Buddhist teachers say the same thing today. Enlightenment isn't something you achieve. It's something you uncover. It's already here, hidden beneath our craving, fear, and confusion. When those clouds lift, the sky has always been there. So, before we chase after mystical experiences, maybe we should pause and ask, what if the truth is already here, right now, in this breath? Let's look deeper. Let's go back 2,500 years ago to a quiet night under a tree in northern India, a night that would change the world forever. A man sits there, still and determined. His name is Siddhartha Gautama. He was once a prince who had everything: wealth, luxury, comfort, but gave it all up in search of one thing: the truth about human suffering. He had meditated for years, studied with masters, practiced every method he could find, but still something was missing. So now, under this Bodhi tree, he makes a vow. I will not rise until I see clearly. As the night deepens, he faces Mara, not some demon in the sky, but the force of fear, craving, and illusion within the mind. Temptations appear, old memories surface, doubts whisper. But instead of reacting, he simply watches. He lets every thought come and go, without clinging, without pushing anything away. And then something shifts. In the silence, he begins to see clearly. He remembers countless past lives, not just his own, but the endless cycle of birth and death for all beings. He sees the root of suffering, how craving keeps us spinning in this cycle. And then, as the morning star rises, it all comes together. He realizes what we now know as the Four Noble Truths: the nature of suffering, its cause, its end, and the path to that end. At that moment, he awakens, but not in some magical, supernatural way. His body is the same, the world is the same. What changed is how he sees, and that's the real miracle. But here's the part that surprises most people. After his awakening, the Buddha didn't suddenly become superhuman. He didn't float into the sky or gain magical powers. He still felt pain. He still got hungry. He still aged, just like everyone else. What changed wasn't his body. It was his relationship to experience. Before enlightenment, like all of us, he struggled with clinging and resistance, wanting things to last, fearing change, getting caught in anger, desire, and fear. But after awakening, he no longer created suffering around life's natural processes. That's the heart of the Buddha's discovery. As the respected monk Thanissaro Bhikkhu explained, the Buddha didn't gain some linear view of the universe. What he saw was more like a hologram, a deep, direct understanding of how suffering arises, and from that clarity came something truly powerful: compassion. The Buddha didn't isolate himself or keep this insight to himself. Instead, he spent the next 45 years walking from village to village, teaching anyone who would listen. His very first talk wasn't about supernatural visions. It was about the practical path to end suffering, the Eightfold Path. And even today, that path still speaks to us. Because it's not about escaping life, it's about engaging with life, fully and clearly. Enlightenment isn't about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming more human, not less. Feeling pain without adding more pain. Meeting each moment with wisdom and kindness. Seeing things just as they are, and responding with peace. It's not flashy, it's not dramatic, but it's real, and it changes everything. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding enlightenment. Most of us grow up with this idea that enlightenment must be some magical, otherworldly state, that someone who is enlightened must float above life's problems, always calm, always smiling, maybe even able to read minds or predict the future. We imagine glowing gurus sitting on mountaintops, untouched by anything. But here's the truth. That's not enlightenment at all. Real Buddhist masters have described enlightenment in ways that are far more grounded, and honestly a bit surprising. One Zen master said this: "Before I studied Zen, mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers. While I was studying, mountains were no longer mountains and rivers no longer rivers. But after enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains and rivers are once again rivers. What does that mean? It means awakening isn't about seeing something new. It's about seeing what's already here, but without distortion. Without the filters of fear, craving, or ego. Reality doesn't change, your perception does. And here's something even more unexpected. Many enlightened teachers say that awakening can feel kind of disappointing. You expect fireworks, you expect a cosmic light show, but instead it feels like just another regular Tuesday morning. Simple, ordinary, even quiet. As Zen Master Dogen wrote, enlightenment is the most ordinary thing in the world, because it's not something you get, it's something you realize. It was never far away, you just couldn't see it clearly before. So if you're waiting for a miracle, a mystical vision, some flash of divine power, maybe what you're really looking for is already right here in this very moment. And now we come to something that trips up so many sincere seekers, something I call the enlightenment trap. It starts innocently. You begin meditating. You want to grow, to understand yourself, to find peace. But then, slowly, your ego sneaks in through the back door. You start asking, am I enlightened yet? Was that moment it? Did I feel something special just now? Suddenly, your practice becomes a performance, a goal, a spiritual trophy to collect. But here's the paradox. The more you chase enlightenment, the further it slips away. Because the very act of chasing is rooted in the ego, in the belief that there's a you who needs to become something else. True awakening, according to the Buddha, comes with the realization of anatta, the principle of non-self, that what we think of as me is not some fixed, permanent identity, but a flowing stream of sensations, thoughts, feelings, and experiences, constantly changing, never truly solid. When you see this clearly, something drops. The tension, the striving, the need to become special. As the Mahayana Sutras say, form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. You don't disappear in enlightenment, you just see through the illusion. You realize you are never as separate or as solid as you believed. And that insight, it's liberating. It's not about becoming a perfect version of yourself. It's about letting go of the idea that there's a perfect self to reach in the first place. That's why many great teachers say, if you think you're enlightened, you're probably not, because real awakening is humble. It doesn't scream, look at me. It quietly whispers, ah, I see. And here's where things can get a little dangerous, because when we misunderstand enlightenment, when we turn it into a badge of honor or something to show off, we open the door to something called spiritual bypassing. It happens when someone uses spiritual ideas to avoid facing real problems. You might have heard phrases like, everything is empty, so nothing matters, or I'm so awakened, I don't need to deal with that anymore. But that's not awakening, that's avoidant. True enlightenment doesn't make you careless. It makes you more responsible, more aware of your actions, more sensitive to the suffering of others. The Buddha himself warned about this in the Kalama Sutta. He said, don't believe something just because it's tradition. Don't believe it just because I said it. Test everything against your own experience. He was calling us not to blind faith, but to honest, direct investigation. Because history is full of so-called enlightened gurus who claimed special powers, demanded obedience, and used their status to control others. But the louder someone claims to be enlightened, the more cautious we should be. As the Tao Te Ching puts it, those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know. The truth is, genuine awakening isn't flashy. It doesn't make you feel superior. It humbles you. It softens your heart. And it's not something you arrive at and hold on to forever. Even the most practiced monks and teachers continue to face themselves again and again with honesty and care. So maybe enlightenment isn't a finish line. Maybe it's a way of showing up in every moment with clarity and compassion. That's the real practice. So what does enlightenment actually look like in the real world? It's easy to imagine that only monks in remote monasteries can reach it, that you need decades of silence or years in a cave. But the truth? Awakening can happen anywhere, and often it shows up in the most ordinary places. A parent changing diapers with full presence, a teacher listening deeply to their students, a programmer writing code, fully engaged in the moment. These aren't dramatic spiritual scenes, but they're real. Because enlightenment isn't about escaping your life. It's about being completely present within it. Scientists have even tried to study this. They've scanned the brains of long-time meditators and found some fascinating things. More activity in the parts of the brain linked to compassion, focus, and awareness. Less reactivity in the amygdala, the area tied to fear and anger, and a quieter default mode network, the part of the mind always talking about me. But here's the key. A brain scan can't detect enlightenment. It can measure patterns and changes, but awakening isn't something physical. It's not data on a chart. It's how you live. And here's a little story to prove it. At a silent meditation retreat I attended, someone had this blissful experience during practice. Their face was glowing. But later that day, when someone took the last dessert at lunch, boom, instant frustration. That moment wasn't a failure. It was the practice itself. Because enlightenment isn't about never getting angry. It's about noticing, there's that pattern again. And maybe even smiling at it. That awareness, that gentle, honest seeing, is where real transformation begins. Now, let's talk about one of the most beautiful teachings in all of Buddhism, the Bodhisattva path. A Bodhisattva is someone who could reach full enlightenment and escape the cycle of rebirth, but chooses not to. Why? Because they vow to stay behind, to walk alongside others, and to help all beings find freedom from suffering. It's the ultimate expression of compassion. Instead of saying, I've made it, I'm done, the Bodhisattva says, I'll return again and again until no one is left behind. There's a traditional prayer that captures this beautifully. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge, for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick. Isn't that powerful? The Bodhisattva path completely redefines the purpose of awakening. It's no longer about personal achievement or spiritual success. It becomes an offering, a way of serving others with clarity, patience, and love. Even suffering takes on a new meaning. Instead of being something to escape, your own pain becomes a doorway to understanding the pain of others. It becomes a teacher, one that deepens your empathy and strengthens your commitment to help. In a world that often tells us to focus on personal gain, the Bodhisattva path reminds us real fulfillment comes through connection, through showing up, not just for ourselves, but for one another. That, too, is enlightenment. Not a private experience, but a shared light, something that spreads naturally from heart to heart. But how does this enlightenment arise in the first place? Is it sudden, like a lightning strike, or does it unfold slowly over time? This question has sparked deep debates throughout Buddhist history. In Zen and Chan traditions, teachers often speak of sudden enlightenment, moments of sharp insight that crack the mind wide open. There are famous stories. A monk sweeping the floor hears a tile hit bamboo. Crack, and in that sound everything becomes clear, or the ring of a temple bell that somehow breaks through years of confusion in an instant. These dramatic awakenings are known as satori, sudden glimpses of the truth. But in Theravada Buddhism, the journey is often seen as more gradual, like climbing a mountain, step by step. First comes ethical living, then concentration, and finally deep insight. The ancient text Visuddhimagga even outlines 16 distinct stages of insight, each one unfolding naturally as understanding deepens. So, which one is right? Maybe both? One teacher explained it like this: enlightenment is sudden, but the expression of it is gradual. It's like the sun rising. The moment it appears on the horizon, light bursts forth. But it still takes time for the light to spread, for everything to be fully seen and understood. Some people awaken in a single moment, others over many years. But either way, it's not about speed, it's about authenticity. The Buddha himself never said, "I am enlightened." He said, "I am awake." And sometimes, awakening happens like turning on a light switch. Other times, like the soft glow of morning filling the room. What matters most is that you begin to see clearly. So after all of this, what have we really discovered? Enlightenment isn't about becoming special. It's not about gaining superpowers. It's not about floating above life, untouched by pain. And it's certainly not about escaping reality. It's about seeing reality clearly, just as it is, without the filters of craving, fear, or illusion. The external world may look exactly the same, but your relationship with it transforms completely. As one teacher beautifully put it, enlightenment isn't a cosmic fireworks display. It's simply removing the blinders you never knew you were wearing. You stop reacting from habit. You stop chasing the next moment. You stop identifying with every thought or emotion that passes through. And in that stillness, something gentle and powerful arises. Presence, a quiet clarity, a natural compassion. So, here's the invitation. Don't chase enlightenment as another spiritual goal. That's just the ego playing a more subtle game. Instead, show up fully, honestly, with humility and care. Practice with sincerity. Breathe with awareness. Love without needing anything in return. And serve, not to be recognized, but because it brings peace. Remember, Enlightenment isn't found in a temple or in a text or in some perfect technique. It's here, in this breath, in this moment, behind these eyes. The moment you stop searching so hard for it, it's already arrived. Thank you so much for watching. If this video brought you a little more clarity, peace, or inspiration, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to TT-Buddhism. And in the comments below, I'd love to hear what teachings have touched your heart the most. What does enlightenment mean to you? Until next time, may your path be clear, your heart be light, and your mind be at peace.